Good afternoon. We're back with another Marvel Snap video, and today will be a tier list and buying guide for Series 5 and Series 4 cards as of today, April 9th, 2023. So the different tiers, we're going to have a separate tier for the cards that are permanently Series 5. There are currently 3 of them. And then we're going to have cards that are worth buying, cards that are good, but I would recommend waiting until they drop in price, either from Series 5 to Series 4 or Series 4 to Series 3. Cards that are not worth buying, and then we're going to have a separate tier for cards that are going to drop soon, at least according to the schedule posted on Marvel Snap Zone. So let's dive in and we'll take a look at the cards. And we'll start with the cards that are permanently Series 5. That would be Galactus, Thanos, and Kang. The only way to get these cards ever is going to be to pull them from a cache or to buy them with tokens. So, if you have interest in these big bads, we call them, Galactus, Thanos, Kang, this is where I would recommend allocating your tokens if you have any interest in any of these 3 cards, because the odds that you will pull them from a cache, it's incredibly unlikely. So the only way you're going to get them is by buying them for 6,000 tokens. They're never going to drop in price, at least according to the developers as of today. They are all strong. The strongest, currently the top of the meta, in my opinion, is Shuri, then Galactus, and then Thanos, though Galactus and Thanos are very close to each other in strength. I have Galactus as the strongest of the 3 big bads. However, I think he's less interesting to play than Thanos. I think Thanos is slightly weaker in the post-Thanos nerf meta, but I think he's more fun to play and more varied. There are different variations of the Thanos deck, and there's really only one variant of Galactus, though there's also a Galactus Thanos deck. So Thanos is less interesting, or Thanos is more interesting, but a little weaker. He's still quite strong, but I think he's the 3rd best deck in the meta right now, behind Shuri and behind Galactus. Neither of these 2 big bads are cards that I am particularly interested in as of right now. They are known entities. And so with my 6,000 tokens, I chose to buy Kang. Now, Kang is a card I'm going to make a separate video on. I have him ranked 3rd of the big bads for most players, because I think this ranking is for the purpose of recommending cards to buy for the average player. And if you're going to buy one of the big bads for the average player, I would recommend Galactus. Now, I will say that it's important to have an accurate idea of what your expectations are for the game, what your expectations are for yourself, because Galactus is not complicated to play and he's very strong. Kang, I believe, is potentially stronger than any of them. If you've been watching me play this month, you'll know that this was I haven't released all the videos yet, but I'll say this was my fastest climb to infinite ever, and I believe that was in large part due to Kang. I find Kang incredibly strong. I'll make a separate video about the rules that I follow when playing Kang that I believe have brought me a lot of success playing him. However, for most players, I think he's a very complicated card to play with a very high skill ceiling. And so if that seems appealing to you, then you can increase Kang's ranking all the way up to number 1 of the cards to buy. But be prepared to put some time into him. Be prepared to do some trial and error to figure out what works for you and what doesn't work for you with Kang. But my opinion is that his high skill ceiling makes him potentially the best card of the big bads, and one of the best cards, if not the best card in the game as of right now. However, for most players, I would recommend Galactus or Thanos over Kang. And for most players, I think that buying Kang will result in something that feels a little underwhelming to play and perhaps doesn't do a lot for you. Now, that is going to sound kind of braggy because, you know, I'm giving my opinion that I myself am a player who enjoys a high skill ceiling card, and that I'm not an average player, but I feel fairly safe in that assessment of myself at this particular moment in time because it is April 9th and I got to Infinite already, and as you can see, my season pass is at level 18, level 17. It was level 17 when I hit Infinite, and that is very quick in my estimation. And so I feel reasonably confident in saying that I am a player that enjoys and can take advantage of high skill ceiling cards. So if you watch my videos and you think to yourself, yeah, I play as good as that guy does, or maybe even better, well then I can say with some degree of confidence that I think Kang is a card you will enjoy and get a lot out of. Now if you're, if you haven't quite got the experience, I've got 4 months playing this game, multiple years playing Hearthstone, multiple years playing Star Wars CCG, multiple years playing poker. So I'm an experienced card game player, and perhaps you've watched my videos and you think, yeah, maybe I don't have that level of experience quite yet. Then Kang might be a little disappointing for you, and Galactus will be a stronger card, or Thanos. And Thanos in particular. So I would rank these cards in terms of the skill needed to play them. Galactus would be like a beginner level card. Thanos would be an intermediate level card, and Kang would be an expert level card. There are more variants of Thanos. There's more room for improvisation, creative deck building, creative play. Galactus is cookie cutter, but very hard to counter if you don't have the specific counter for it in the deck. Now, Kang is also very good in Galactus in order to see if the opponent has the card to counter your deck or not. Anyway, that's my ranking of the big bad. So my recommendation is to buy at least one of these cards with tokens. Save up your tokens until you can get one of them. And then, if you consider yourself a more beginning level player, probably go with Galactus. Or you just want, like, on average, the strongest card, Galactus. If you're more intermediate level, you like more intermediate or more interesting decks, and also want something very strong, Thanos. And for experts, I would recommend Kang. And my apologies for the arrogance in these recommendations, but like I said, I feel reasonably confident in my skills at this game and at card games in general, and so I have no problem with presenting myself as an expert to make recommendations. But your mileage will vary, and I am open to the possibility that I am entirely wrong, and the reason that I climbed rapidly this month was simply because I got Shuri. I think it's in large part due to Kang, but it's entirely possible that it was just Shuri, that I wasn't really displaying any skill at all, and that any player who was running a Shuri deck with all the pay-to-win cards that I had could have also done what I did. That is entirely possible. We'll leave open that door. But my opinion is that for an expert level player, Kang is a very, very strong card. And that Galactus and that Thanos are also very strong. On average, Galactus being the best and the easiest to play. Thanos second and intermediate level, and Kang third. And Shuri tops both of them at the moment, in my opinion. Even after the Red Skull nerf, the second Red Skull nerf, I think Shuri is still at the top. So let's move on to the other Series 5 cards. Next up we have Ghost. Now, Ghost is a very curious card I would have it probably between good but wait and don't buy. But I'm really not sure because I've seen almost nobody play this card. Now, what does Ghost do? Ghost ensures that you always reveal your cards second. Your cards are always revealed last. Their on reveal abilities happen last. I like their clarification there. So one of the things I've noticed about playing Miracle Sarah is that you nearly always want to be revealing your cards last. That's true when you're playing Valkyrie as well. You nearly always want to be playing your cards last. Now, is it worth playing Ghost in your deck to make that happen more often? Almost every player in the game seems to feel the answer is no. You really never see this card being played. It is, therefore, a card that I'm very interested in playing because I think that it's underrated. I think Ghost and Miracle Sarah could be quite good. I think Ghost in a Valkyrie deck could be quite good. I'm very interested in acquiring this card and playing it. It is near the top of my list of cards to buy. However, I have no evidence that it's actually strong. Only my suspicion that it's stronger than people think. But that certainly doesn't elevate it to worth buying. It doesn't even really elevate it to buy once it drops in price. It's currently 6,000 tokens. I don't think I'd recommend it even at 3,000 tokens, though I probably myself will spend 3,000 tokens on it. We'll see. It's going to drop to Series 4 according to the schedule this month in April, later in April. So we'll see if that happens. But currently my recommendation is don't buy this card. Though I look forward to experimenting with it when I acquire it, and hopefully I can change the opinion of a few people who will watch my videos. But we'll see. It could be that I buy it and try it out and think, oh yeah, this card sucks. That's probably the most likely scenario. Next up we have Kitty Pryde, a card that as of this moment is disabled because it is broken in a variety of ways. She is a 1/0. You can return this to your hand to gain +2 power. You can do that every round. So basically, it converts unused energy into additional power. Sunspot converts 1 energy into 1 power with no restriction on the amount of times that you do this. Kitty Pryde, you can do 1 energy into 2 power every turn. Currently, she doesn't work with things like Beast. I don't think she works with Elysium either. So she's been disabled by the developers in order to fix the bugs with her. Now, how good is this card when she's back in the game? How good will this card be when she's back in the game? We don't currently have an icon for Kitty Pryde. I'm going to use the Kingpin icon. It is a K card. I think it's good. Is it worth 6,000? Well, it really depends on its strength relative to Sunspot. And it depends on how the card is going to work once it's been re-enabled. For example, is Beast going to work to reduce the cost to 0? And once you reduce the cost to 0, is she going to remain 0 cost every time you play her for the rest of the game? Is she going to be 0 cost with Elysium? If you could Kitty Pryde on turn 1, Beast on turn 2 to reduce her cost to 0 and return it to your hand, and then increase her power by 2 every round for the remainder of the game, you would bump her up to, 12 power or so for 1 cost? That's crazy good. That's insanely good, Kitty Pryde plus Beast. And that would definitely be a card that is good. Now, is it worth 6,000 tokens, which is what it currently costs? My feeling is no. My feeling is that this card is worth 3,000 tokens. I don't know if it's strong enough to slot into every single deck. I think a lot of games you're only going to get 2 plays out of it. It'll be like a 1 cost 4 power card, or like a 2 cost or a 3 cost. A 2 cost 4 power card, a 3 cost 6 power card that converts, some one of your unused energy into power, fulfilling a similar role to Sunspot. They kind of cannibalize each other, so I don't know that you'd want to play Sunspot and Kitty Pryde, because if you're using one extra energy on Kitty Pryde, then that's energy you're not using on Sunspot. She's also going to cannibalize the card High Evolutionary, because that's an announced card that will come out in another month. It's, in my estimation, strong enough that it's going to see a lot of play. And that card, with the abilities that it grants to ability-less cards, you're going to want to have unused energy, and Kitty Pryde's going to cannibalize that energy a little bit. So my opinion, looking at the cards that have been announced, looking at the cards that currently exist now, is that Kitty Pryde is very good and worth buying, but not at 6,000 tokens. Unless you have Galactus, Thanos, and Kang already. Or maybe just Galactus and Thanos if you're not interested in Kang. A lot of players aren't. But otherwise, I wouldn't spend 6,000 on Kitty Pryde, but I would spend 3,000 on her. I think she's got a lot of potential, especially if they fix her in the way that I hope they will, which is that Beast will reduce her cost to 0, and Elysium would make her 0 cost as well. I think she's very, very strong. Next up, we have Master Mold. Another card that I don't have an icon for because it's pretty new. So we'll just use like a Mr. Negative instead. So Master Mold. Master Mold adds 2 Sentinels to your opponent's hand, so it has some synergy with Ronin, the Accuser. The card seems okay. It's definitely kind of a C tier deck, and therefore definitely not worth 6,000 tokens, and I wouldn't spend 3,000 tokens on it either. I think this card is niche and underwhelming. It seems like it's good to clog up your opponent's hand, but in practice it's something that when it happens to me is like, yeah, it's kind of annoying, but it doesn't really affect me that much. Because currently the best deck in the meta is Shuri, and Shuri generally doesn't care that much whether the hand gets clogged up or not, because they're not looking to play a lot of cards. I don't know, maybe every deck doesn't really care that much if its hand gets clogged up. So it does add power to Ronin, but it also telegraphs the Ronin play. I don't think this card is very good. I've been underwhelmed by it. So I would say don't buy this card, and I would have it I would put even less priority on it than Ghost. It seems like a fun card, but not a very good one. Next up, we have Negasonic Teenage Warhead, another newer card that I don't have an icon for in this tier maker. The most up-to-date one was up-to-date as of, I think, end of February. Never mind, I looked again and found a more up-to-date one thanks to Educated Collins, so we'll use that one now. So we've got Kitty Pryde, Ghost, and Master Mold icons there. So Negasonic Teenage Warhead, let's take a look. Another underwhelming card. I won't bury the lead. 3 cost, 4 power. After any card is played here, destroy this card and that card. I think this card has extremely niche use, and I'd rank it even lower than Master Mold. I don't see a reason at all to spend 6,000 tokens on this card. I don't see a reason to spend 3,000 on it either. I wouldn't even be that happy to pull it from a cache if it was Series 3. I don't think this card is good. I haven't seen a single Negasonic Teenage Warhead play against me that helped an opponent to win the game. This just isn't good. Next up, we have Stature. Stature's pretty strong. Costs 1 if your opponent discarded a card from their hand this game. Ran into an interesting Stature deck recently that played Shuri and then Stature Taskmaster on turn 6 to get dual 14 power statures. A little bit less effective than She-Hulk Taskmaster, but still a very interesting play. I think this is strong, and I think this card is worth 3,000 tokens, but not 6,000 tokens. It's a strong addition to a discard deck in combination with Moon Knight. Actually makes Black Bolt a little bit playable. Certainly strong in any meta where the opponents are running discard decks. I will likely buy this card, or at least give it a strong look when it hits 3,000 tokens. I rank it behind Kitty Pryde in that category. But cost reduction cards are very, very strong in this game. Any card that has cost reduction of 2 or more is very, very strong. And there aren't that many anymore. There used to be a couple of more. They keep getting nerfed because they're OP. Quinjet got nerfed. That's a cost reduction card. She-Hulk got nerfed. Zabu got nerfed. Cost reduction is very, very strong. And so stature I think very highly of. And I'll look forward to getting this card when it hits 3,000 tokens. I don't think it's worth 6. So that's all the Series 5 cards. There aren't many of them at the moment. And at the moment, none of them, in my opinion, are worth buying for 6,000 tokens except for the big bads, because those will never be reduced. So I don't recommend buying any 6,000 token cards except for the ones that will always be 6,000 tokens. But there are 2 that I think are strong enough to buy for 3,000 tokens. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Series 4 cards. First up, we're going to have Bast. According to the schedule posted on Marvel Snap Zone, Bast will be moving down to Series 3 this month, April 2023, toward the end of the month. It is a very, very strong card. Set the power of all cards in your hand to 3. This is the central card of a few different decks, including a Hitmonkey deck, Mr. Negative as well. Very, very powerful in those decks, and it's a very, very strong card. However, as it is dropping in series at the end of this month, I cannot recommend buying it for 3,000 tokens, but it is absolutely worth picking up. It may even be the first card that I pick up with my free card next month in Series 3, if I don't have it already by then. Very, very strong card. Probably the strongest of the Series 4 cards. Cards that are Series 4 at the moment, and one of the best cards in the game. Next up we have Black Panther, a card that I recently purchased for 3,000 tokens, even though I knew that it was going to drop in price at the end of this month, but I didn't want to wait, and I had the tokens, and there wasn't that many other cards that I thought were interesting. So I picked up Black Panther. This is a very strong card. It does require other cards around it to really make it work. Just playing it as a 5/8 isn't that good, so you really need Wong or Shuri with it. But there are other better cards to play with Shuri. And so if you're going to play Shuri Black Panther, then you really need Zola after that to double it in power again. But in combination with other cards, if you play the line Wong, Shuri, Arnim, Zola, and the opponent doesn't have a counter card, you're going to win almost all of the time. So I like this card a lot. I think doubling cards are always going to be very good. Moon Girl, Absorbing Man, Mystique, cards that allow you to play the same card more than once, or the same card's effect more than once, are always going to have a place in the meta. So this card, if it doesn't ever get changed, and I don't think it's on anybody's radar to get changed, it's always going to be, there's always going to be a deck that it fits in. Cards that double in power or double something else, they're always going to have a place. They're always going to be strong. And so Black Panther is well worth buying, though it is dropping in series at the end of this month, so you may want to wait to pick it up until then at this point. It was a Battle Pass card from the first month the game was released out of beta. Very good card. Next up we have Darkhawk, card that I pulled out of a cache. before Zabu was nerfed, which was pretty lucky. Darkhawk's still quite good. The nerf didn't hurt it that much. It got nerfed to 0 power. I'd probably rank it as stronger than Black Panther. It's very good in Mr. Negative. It's very good with Bast, who sets its power to 3, and then it gets its ongoing effect after that. It's very good in the Hit Monkey deck with Bast. It's good in Mr. Negative. Very strong card. According to the schedule posted on Marvel Snap Zone, it will drop in series in May. So I'm going to put this card in worth buying because the current Battle Pass card is Hit Monkey, and Darkhawk is a very good card in the Hit Monkey deck. So I will say that Darkhawk is worth buying if you're an avid Mr. Negative player, or if you already have Bast or intend to pick up Bast very quickly at the end of the month. Darkhawk is well worth your tokens for 3,000 tokens currently. It might be a little bit underwhelming if you don't have Bast, though, so beware. But if you've already pulled Bast, Darkhawk is well worth the tokens at the moment. If you've already purchased whatever you want from the big bads. Next up we have Dazzler, a card I pulled from a cache when it was Series 5. I tried my best to make it work with some success, but it's not a good card. Don't buy this card. I would rank it higher than Negasonic, I think, but probably lower than Master Mold. If you have 4 cards at each location plus 6 power, so it needs a very specific deck around it. Now it's pretty good with Ultron. With Ultron, you're paying 10 energy for 20 power. Not bad. Plus whatever the Ultron drones give, so 20 plus power. It's not bad, but it gets outscaled by other decks pretty easily. So you can win, and you can win some surprise 8-cube wins with that. Just because no one ever sees Dazzler. And so they might not see Dazzler and automatically think, oh, he's running Ultron and be ready for it. But I would not recommend anybody buy this card. It's too niche, and even in its best case scenario, it's not that good. It's like a deck that'll get you to the mid 80s or so at its best, but no higher than that. Next up we have Null. Null, according to the schedule, is dropping in series at the end of May. So I will say that this card is definitely worth buying if you intend to play Galactus. It's a very strong card in the Galactus deck, possibly even a must-play card in the Galactus deck. It has some use in Mr. Negative as well. I'm still trying to iron out the perfect Mr. Negative list, and I'm probably going to work on that more while I am at Infinite now this month. I don't have Bast yet, though, unfortunately, but I do think that Null was recently fixed with Mr. Negative. Prior to the fix, if anything on the table was destroyed while Null was in your deck, Null would go up to 5 or 10 power or whatever in the deck, and then if Mr. Negative then reversed it, it would cost 10. Now, it doesn't go up in power until it's out of the deck, so you can invert it. It'll be with Mr. Negative, it'll be 0 cost, and then it'll also get the benefit of cards that were destroyed. It's a strong card. I think it's good in Mr. Negative. It's fantastic in Galactus. Potentially even a must-play card in Galactus. 6-0 has the combined power of all cards destroyed this game. When Galactus destroys all location but one, all of the cards that are at the other locations are destroyed. Null also gets credit for cards that are destroyed by Yondu. Yondu's in an interesting spot with Battle Pass cards where he doesn't trigger Nimrod, but he does add power to Null. Kind of interesting. So next up we're going to talk about Nimrod. Nimrod's an interesting card. He's currently a Series 5 card. I don't have an icon for him here. He's missing from this list. But I'm going to put him in the don't buy category, but I would have him higher than Dazzler, probably on par with Master Mold. Now the thing about Nimrod that I found interesting, he does have a good deck. It's very, very specific though. And the specific deck that he's good in is the one that I played from 95 to Infinite this season. It runs like Electro and Arnim Zola and Destroyer. But one of the interesting things I found about Nimrod is that opponents seem to be scared of him. He's unpredictable. It's hard to do the math about where he's going to go if you're triggering multiple destructions on the final turn. It's hard to do the math about how much power you're going to have at different locations, and that's bad for the player playing him, though presumably the player playing him has more experience with Nimrod and has some idea of how he works. But opponents seem scared of him at sometimes. I'd like throw Nimrod on the table and the people would just run away right away. Even if he didn't have anything particularly good lined up after. He seems unpredictable, I guess, to people, and they don't like it. Is he strong, though? No, he's not strong. There's one particular deck where he does okay in, and that deck is decent. But I wouldn't say he's worth spending 6,000 tokens on. And is he worth spending 3,000 tokens? Only if you really, really want to play the deck that I played this month. Then sure, but otherwise, no, he's not. And most people will probably even be sad pulling him from a cache when he's eventually Series 3. Which isn't going to be until August because he was just the Battle Pass card last month in March. But he's pretty weak overall. So you can put him between Master Mold and Dazzler there in the don't buy category. Next up we have Sauron. Sauron is a card that gets played in the Shuri deck. He removes the ongoing abilities of like Typhoid Mary, Red Skull, Lizard, that kind of thing. That version of the Shuri deck, I think, is not as good as the standard version, so I certainly wouldn't recommend buying Sauron. Now, he's easier to play. I think he's simpler, and simple is worth something in terms of your cube rate. But he's not worth enough to recommend spending 3,000 tokens on him. So, we know where he goes. We know he's going to get hit when the Shuri gets nerfed, probably later this month, but we'll see. We don't know how hard he's going to get hit yet, because we don't know how hard that deck is going to get hit yet, but I certainly wouldn't recommend buying him, and especially not before we know what's going to happen with the Shuri deck. Next up we have Sentry. Very interesting card now. Hard to place this card, so let's talk about him for a bit. Sentry was very recently buffed by 2 power. He's now at 4/10, and he spawns a 4-10 void on the right location, and he can't be played at the right location. Which means that in the Sentry deck you want to play Sentry along with Valkyrie, Carnage, and or Viper in order to deal with that 4-10 void. How good is that deck? It's okay. It's like a C tier deck. So I don't think he belongs in the same category as Kitty Pryde or Stature. I'd put him at don't buy, but right at the top of the don't buy list. And if that his type of deck really appeals to you, you could elevate him to, I'd probably put him at good, but wait to buy. When he's Series 3, he may be worth using your 1 free card per month to get him. But I don't think he's worth buying for 3,000 tokens. However, if you really like his style of deck, you could potentially elevate him up to worth buying. He is dropping down in Series to Series 3 in May. But so I think he might be worth getting in pool 3, but probably not in pool 4. I haven't seen a Sentry deck that I thought was really exceptional, though I have seen Sentry decks that I thought were capable of making it to infinite. So I've got him as good, but not worth 3,000 tokens. Probably worth 1,000, or you can't really spend 1,000 tokens on Series 3 cards anymore. But he might be worth spending your one free Series 3 card per month on, if you really like his style of deck and you have the cards that surround him. Next up we have Shadow King, a card that was recently buffed. His price was dropped from 4 cost to 3 cost. On reveal, set all cards here. To their original base power. This is a garbage tier card. Similar to Negasonic, don't buy. There are other cards, Valkyrie and Shang-Chi, that do his job, or Enchantress that do his job, and that are Valkyrie is more varied uses. Shang-Chi and Enchantress are free. So definitely not worth spending 3,000 tokens on. Definitely not worth your one free Series 3 card per month. Probably a card you'll be sad to pull from my cache in Series 3. This is not a good card. Currently, Shadow King does not drop in Series until July. Next up we have Shauna. Shauna is a 4 cost 2 power card. Add a random 1 cost card to each location. Shauna is a garbage tier card, similar to Dazzler, I would say. Now the problem with Shauna, it seems like it's okay, because I would say you get like 2 power value out of most 1 cost cards, so it seems like Shauna would be a 4/8 card if you get an additional 6 power. The problem is that she clogs up the board. And clogging up the board, I value a board slot at around 2 power if you're using up extra ones. And so Shauna isn't actually a 4/8 in my estimation. She's more like a 4/2, which is absolutely garbage tier. Unless you really want to have the board clogged every game, and currently there's not enough synergy, board clogging synergy, to make that play worth it. So don't buy Shauna. Don't buy Shauna now. Don't buy Shauna when she drops in tier. This isn't a good card. She's currently not scheduled to drop until June. Rarely see her run. I'm sad when it pops out of Expansion usually. I don't play it when it pops out when it's added to my hand randomly. It needs a deck built around it, and that deck isn't very good. I don't even think she synergizes with Dazzler that well. Though I guess there's some potential there, and if I pulled Shauna for my cache, I might try that deck just for fun. But I wouldn't expect it to be very strong. C tier at best, probably like a C- tier that deck would be. But it might be fun. And it would be unexpected, I suppose. Next up we have Shuri. Currently, as she stands now, the best card in the game. She is dropping in series, according to Marvel Snap Zone, at the end of April. And therefore I would recommend waiting until the end of April to pick her up. I recently pulled her from a cache. I can confirm what everybody already knows, that this card is very good and probably shouldn't exist in this form for as long as it has. But the developers are very hesitant to nerf Series 5 or Series 4 cards, except for Battle Pass cards. What more can you say? Everybody already knows where this card's at. It's the best card in the game, as it stands right now at this moment. And the only reason it's not in the worth buying category is that it is dropping down to Series 3 at the end of this month, most likely, according to Marvel Snap Zone. So I think that's all we really need to say about Shuri. Next up we have the Silver Surfer, a card that was once much better than it is now. It was a Battle Pass card. 3 cost 2 power. Give your other 3 cost cards plus 2 power. It is currently not worth buying. The Silver Surfer deck is still decent though. So we'll put it near the top of the don't buy category, but the reason I recommend not buying it, it is capable of getting to infinite. However, it's like a C minus, maybe C plus tier deck. Third tier, not that good, not really that competitive in the meta. It's nice to have for some variety in the decks that you can play, but that's about the only reason why. In its current form, not that good a card and really not worth the tokens. Is it worth spending your one Series 3 card on? I don't even really think it's worth that. Not for a card that requires a deck around it, and that deck is like a third tier, C tier deck. Next up we have Super Scroll, an overpowered card in the right situation, but that situation is fairly rare. And therefore this card goes in the don't buy category. Has the ongoing effects of all enemy cards. That can be extremely good, but the times when it's extremely good are rare. So it's a card that you'll throw in a deck occasionally if you pull it randomly, but I don't think it's worth buying. You certainly won't miss it if you don't have it. We can just leave this one until it drops to Series 3 and then pick it up out of a cache. It will currently drop to Series 3 actually in April, end of this month, so we're putting it in the dropping Series soon category. And it goes toward the back of that list of cards that are dropping in Series soon. Next up we have Valkyrie. I think Valkyrie is very, very strong. Even serves as a Shuri counter. Yeah, I think it's worse than Bast. Bast is just so good. But it is very strong, and it would be worth the 3,000 tokens if it wasn't dropping in Series soon, but it is at the end of April, and therefore I would wait until April and then pick it up. I would pick it up after Bast. We'll see where Shuri lands after she gets nerfed. Wouldn't buy Shuri right now because it is scheduled for a nerf according to the developers. I imagine they're just waiting until she drops to Series 3. Bast may go to the top of the list after the Shuri nerf, we'll see. Valkyrie is also very, very strong and worth getting, but wait on it for a couple of weeks and then it'll get cheaper. But a very strong card, and I'm looking forward to playing this card when I get it. Sets all cards at this location to 3 power. Could have some synergy with Ghost, because you definitely want your opponent to have initiative when you're playing Valkyrie. So, very strong card. Next up we've got Zabu, once the king of the meta. Now he is kind of a niche card. I will put him in the don't buy category, similar to Silver Surfer, though I do think Silver Surfer is better. Zabu is better. Currently, Zabu is scheduled to drop in tier in June. So, what deck really needs Zabu to work well? There isn't really one. So, I wouldn't say you need to buy Zabu. It's okay. It's good. It can be a nice supporting card in some decks, but cost reduction cards will always have some place in the meta. But the current cost reduction that he provides is only 1, and we need 2 cost reduction in order to be OP. So Zabu is going to go in the don't buy category, but at the very top of it. I still wouldn't necessarily even recommend buying him after he drops to Series 3, but that's going to be a couple of months anyway. So he's been relegated to pretty niche supporting card status. And the last card we're going to talk about is the Battle Pass card from February, which is Modoc. Modoc is a pretty nice card in the discard lists. Modoc is currently series... What series is Modoc? It's currently Series 5, right? I think he's Series 5. Let me check. Yeah, Modoc is currently Series 5, dropping to Series 4. Scheduled to drop in April this month. I wouldn't buy this card for 6,000. I would buy this card for 3,000 only if you really love discard decks. I think it's very good in the discard deck. It really elevates that deck. But even with Modoc, the discard deck is a tier 3 deck, so only if you really love discard would I recommend buying Modoc. Otherwise, you can just leave discard and Modoc alone until he drops down to Series 3, which is going to be a while. Currently not scheduled to happen until July. But you're not missing out on that much if you don't play discard. So, goes and don't buy. That's the last card of the Pool 5 and Pool 4 cards. So my recommendation for how to spend your tokens is to look and see which of the big bads you want to get. Save up 6,000 tokens and get those first. After that, or if you've already done that or you're not interested in any of the big bads, Darkhawk is well worth a buy if you want to play him with Bast and Hitmonkey. Hitmonkey, the current Battle Pass card. I do think Hitmonkey is worth the $10 it requires to get him from the Battle Pass. And then Null is also worth getting if you intend to play Galactus. Kitty Pryde and Stature are worth spending 3,000 tokens on. Sentry is worth spending 1,000 tokens on, or potentially your one free Series 3 card per month. And the others you can safely say no to. Shuri is well worth spending 1,000 tokens or 3,000 tokens on in her current form, as are Bast, Valkyrie, and Black Panther, though all of those are dropping in cost at the end of April. And Shuri's likely to get nerfed, so take that into account if you're considering buying her with tokens for the next 2 weeks, because the developers have said that there is a nerf coming for Shuri. So, those are my recommendations. The strongest cards of all of these, aside from the big bads, are all dropping in series at the end of this month. Bast, Valkyrie, Shuri, all would be at the top of the list in power. And so the remainder of the cards, there's not much to spend tokens on at the moment. Unless you don't have Darkhawk or Null, or one of the big bads. But if that's the case, Kitty Pryde and Stature I think are quite good, but probably not worth 6,000. I'd spend 3 on them. Anyway, it's my opinion. And thank you for watching.